Good evening, how are you? Well, I'm in Ocean City, Maryland, arrived here pretty late, and so it's dark, but you can still hear the water crashing up on the shore. And if you were here, you'd smell the salt, and you'd be tempted, even in a suit, to want to go in the water, which I think is pretty chilly right now. The reason to talk today is about something I don't think I've dwelled on enough, and it is the visitation by close associates of Trump who come to court to basically impress themselves upon the jurors. Now, since they're not known, and I don't know that they're highly respected, but they may be able to cast, if not terror, the threat of force of office or the government upon those who would consider looking at Trump and saying, how can we prosecute a president? And what will happen to me if I'm a member of the jury that does that? Now, if individuals walked into a courtroom as other citizens did and waited online and were admitted, that would be one thing. But apparently, these public officials who would ordinarily not entertain a case in litigation have decided to come to court to intimidate and broadcast their displeasure with the court by their appearance. And they march in through the pathway that Trump himself enters the court, and they come in as if a phalanx against fair play in a courtroom. Now, this shouldn't surprise us. But what does surprise me is that no one is shouting and screaming foul. I thought that Biden made a big mistake when he did win the election. And from the day he won the election until he was sworn, hanging over America was the question of the false allegation that there had been fraud and that Biden was not the appropriate designee as president-elect or president. To this day, we hear this from these officials. To this day, we hear that Biden is behind a prosecution that grand jurors chose and agents investigated and judges have screened for each detail for its sufficiency to go forward in court, as continues to be the case. But no word has been said against those who came to court from the Capitol Hill and from the ranks of those who would be Trump's vice president when he is nominated as the party representative for all Republicans in the country. That's truly a sad day, but I don't mourn their terrible conduct. What I mourn is that there is no reaction to it. And it suggests to me that the intimidation they hope to cast on the jurors who were in the courtroom is the kind of terror that was cast on all the members of the Republican Party in the House and the Senate when Trump would demand their fealty to him as if he already was a monarch in America. This is a very dangerous time when we remain silent about misconduct, such as Trump's, such as these elected officials. When I've been on the Hill, or from time to time have asked members of Congress, the House or the Senate, to take a position on a case whose policy I thought was broader than the individual litigants, I've always been told, not while it's in litigation. Congress stays out of it, does not interfere, respects the separation of powers for the judiciary and the executive to do what they do without the legislative chiming in and affecting it. Well, that's obviously a dead letter when they choose to try to usurp our Constitution, our laws, our history, to help Trump become president again so he can continue the worst that he imposed upon us while he was president, and that he continues to impose upon us while at trial in Lower Manhattan. So, while I hope and expect to have some pleasant, relaxing time over the next several days, when the light is out, and there's a nearby pool that's heated, so I'm tempted to try to do laps there. But in the meantime, think about this and think how it is appropriate to protest to our so-called elected representatives who sit on their hands and clutch their rosary beads but fail to act. And in this case, I think the judge has to act. Fighting for individual rights and liberties is a messy business. I've said it before, I know it from experience, and I think that if you don't participate in the messy business, you don't resist it, you don't call it out, you make it ordinary, you make it possible, you make it what they do all the time. We have been compared in recent days to other nation states who've had dictators. We are dangerously close to a government that is failing as a democracy. This trial is the centerpiece of the antidote to all that challenges our founding documents, the promise that all men and women are equal before the law, the promise of opportunity as written in the Constitution to provide and protect the general welfare. That's what's at stake. And when representatives of Congress who don't live in New York would come to New York and try to tell us during a trial and criticize the trial and attack the trial as Trump has, suggest that Trump had a hand in the entire arrangement. There's no way they came in with him without conversation. There's no way that this happened without conversation about what they would say. We could all turn a deaf ear to it, cover our eyes and pretend not to see it, but it's still there, and it has the effect on everyone else who sees that we do nothing or little to stop it. So, I would spin around, but probably you wouldn't see me. So I'm standing in sand near the beach, and I look forward to talking to you in the light of day. Bye-bye.